Every business owner faces these three options at some point in time. Do I stay in the business and keep being the main person, earning really good money, but essentially sort of trapped there until we stop? Do I sell and completely exit, take a big financial windfall, hopefully, and then decide what you do next, if anything at all? Or do I step out of the day-to-day, put a management team in the business and design the business so it can scale without its founder? Well, I'm in the process of going through one of those options right now. And I thought, given my audience is so many business owners, aspirational people and entrepreneurs, it might be useful to talk you through those in a bit more detail and which one I'm going with and why I'm doing it. So let's go into option one, stay in the business forever. Now, some would call this a trap for life, but others would say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And if you think about it, like the master tailor in one of those beautiful fine suit stores. I've actually got a friend like this, Vince Varka, his name is, and he's such a humble guy, but I'm still going to shout him out because I see the way he works. He's hired by the best in the world, opera singers, flown all around the world, but that business is Vince Varka. He is on the tools, he's on the rags, he's selling his product in the stores, he's doing private fitments. And like Seth Godin says, it's basically a freelancer job, even though you own the business. Seth Godin describes freelancers and entrepreneurs, and a freelancer is someone that you can get bigger clients, but you can't really get someone else to do what you do because you're the specialist. Same as like a heart surgeon, for example. So there are benefits. You get to do what you love over and over. You get bigger clients, you make more money. But when you decide to stop, there might not be as much to sell. And that's the real considered choice that's got to be made at some point. So with this option, like for Vince, for example, even if he built a team, it can look like you've got a business if you build a whole team to be doing the work instead of you doing the work. But if that team still relies on Vince or that business owner for what they do ongoing to keep growing the business, then essentially you are still in the business. And that's just a reality that someone in that lens needs to consider. So option two, the full exit. This is where you sell everything, hopefully have a massive windfall and walk away. Now, I've had multiple opportunities to do this over the years, and it's not easy even when it comes up. It's not like you just go chuck the keys over your shoulder and walk out. There's usually some sort of pressure, some sort of rub, some sort of reason that the decision's not easy to make, especially if you already haven't decided it. So the idea of building to sell is, especially with companies like SaaS companies where there's like revenue and subscriptions, and you're really just trying to grow the number of customers and grow the amount of retention of those customers. There's a lot of service companies that you can do a similar way, like accountants, financial planners, insurances, mortgage, recruitment agencies. You can go right down the path with industrial and trades. All of these have the ability to be built for exit, where you've got a formula of how you acquire customers, you've got a formula of how you retain them, how you grow the amount they spend, what we call lifetime value, and you often gain a market share position that makes you defendable. So it makes that company very acquirable by another company who might be in the same sector and they're doing what they call roll-ups, where you're getting multiple competitors and you're rolling up and selling it as one big group. Or it could be like a fund, like a serial acquirer fund, which I'm involved in private equity, and I'll probably unpack that a bit more later. Essentially, if you are going to be building to sell and completely walk away, it's got to be engineered. It can happen by accident, but really that's going to cost big time. So that there's a way to sort of build that so the fruit is ripe to pick. And you really are engineering in growing gross margins in particular, stabilizing cost line as much as possible, and having the business as non-dependent on its founder or key people as possible. So I suppose the key message is if you are going to build to sell and exit completely and walk away with a big windfall, it's good to have that lens as early as possible because you know what great looks like. You know what indicators to track. And maybe you stop trying to fix new problems and you just start getting better at the ones you've already got. And when you get something that's repeatable, that's very attractive to someone coming in to buy. So option three is to step out of the day-to-day and turn the business into what can eventually be an investment that can run without its founder. Now, there's degrees of influence the founder can still have, but what this essentially is no day-to-day involvement inside the business with how it's being run, how customers are directly being interacted with. That's the ultimate to get to. And to give you a pyramid that is a proven and well-documented model to sort of reference this, think about Michael E. Gerber's book, The E-Myth, or The E-Myth Revisited. Classic piece of business literature. He talks about a pyramid. At the bottom of it is the technician that's doing the work, the suit doing the tailoring, the barber cutting the hair, the surgeon working on hearts. The next one up is the manager that is showing other people how to do that, holding them accountable, and it isn't always the same person that can be the technician. The next one up is the owner, where the owner's mindset creeps in, how much money we spend on things, who we hire, who we fire, what we advertise on, who's doing the books, whether we have professional cleaners or we clean the office ourselves. Then we've got the entrepreneur that goes and takes what they're doing and looks to replicate it elsewhere with others doing the work, not them doing the work. And that's part of the skill of entrepreneurialism, is being able to replicate and get out of the way. But then above that is the investor. And it's the investor of their own company that can be either active or passive, where that company is essentially running without its founder. And it's the sort of investment that the founder, if they had exited, they would still want to buy into a company like that for the returns, for the growing capital, and for the impact it's making if you're that way inclined. So they're essentially the three main options that a founder has, or a decision that a founder or business owner is going to have to make at some point in time. So you're probably wondering which option I'm going with. Well, I'm going with option 3. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've always wanted to move to Melbourne, where I am recording from right now. We owned a property down here since 2022 that we had Airbnb going from, and I wanted to live in Melbourne, but these businesses are not in Melbourne. Another reason is that I want to have levers over where my business and entrepreneurial focus is going, that I can actually improve things, injecting my purpose and my soul into those, but having a degree of control over the trajectory of it, rather than just selling it and just hoping that the buyer's going to look after the 1,300 investors we've got in our business that trust us for their wealth creation, or the 45 plus team members, the international team that we've got that's been part of the journey for nearly 10 years now. And I look at all of those things there and I think, well, I don't want to just sell and then just go and put my money into sort of passive investments and go away on lots of holidays and catch up with people for lunches and talk about the good old days. I actually want to stay relevant. I want to keep creating. And I think it's a great opportunity right now. We're in the age of AI and personal brands. And I haven't done a lot of growing my personal brand when I've been in franchise groups or have others that I've put out in front of the businesses. And, for example, Jack Henderson, he's a great co-founder of mine in Henderson Advocacy. I'm no longer in that business with him, but I'm very proud of what that business is doing. And I watched the way he's turned his personal brand into one of the biggest in Australia, if not the biggest in Australian real estate, and still going. It was very tempting to jump on that bandwagon and make that the main business. But I did design that business to be hands-off from the start. And when we decided to make Presence Real Estate Group our own company and leave the franchise that we were with, I sort of had the choice at that moment whether to sell everything and then go into that kind of passive semi-retirement mode, or keep going. And I feel like I can inject more of my IP, more of my creativity into this business now. So there's 2 key decisions that I needed to make to help me execute on this vision. One of them was I needed to appoint a C-suite to run the business. So a C-suite as in a CEO, and I've created a role called Chief Performance Officer. The Chief Performance Officer basically looks right across sales, property management, and any new client relationship. And the CEO, being the Chief Executive Officer, looks after everything to do with the running of the business, the hiring, the firing, the managing of managers, and executing on the roadmap vision that I helped set out with the advisory board. The second key decision that I had to make was whether I take on external capital or I self-fund it. And I've chosen to self-fund it, or at this point in time anyway. And that was actually a pretty challenging decision to make, because a lot of people think if you're exiting a business that's making profit, that you just exit and just keeps making profit and there's no big deal. But you've got to realize that if you've stepped out of being the main person, the main figurehead for any number of years, that whether you like it or not, you have been sprinkling your fairy dust on every single person in that business, every single client relationship, every decision that's being made. And when you take that fairy dust away, what remains is usually a really good solid core, but there's still going to be a little bit of an edge that needs to be built in. And this is where the C-suite can really grow into that and help the people grow. But that doesn't happen overnight. Throw into that I made some decisions about rebranding. I'd made some decisions about moving away. And I'd made some decisions to bring in a higher degree of standards and operating systems. So there was already change management going on. So this is probably an important message for founders that if they do want to stay in their business and have it continuing to grow in terms of number of customers and their average lifetime value per customer, growing gross margin dollars, growing EBIT or EBITDA dollars, to have things trending in the right direction after one has gone, there needs to be a reinvestment back in. And this was one of the toughest decisions to make. Because if I put my own money back in, I'm essentially chewing into the capital I've amassed over many years. Also, the capital value of the business, if I wanted to have an exit suddenly. Once you've sort of decided to go all in on sort of scaling as a remote founder or a founder that's exited with a management team, you've really got to make it work. And there's going to be a period of time where the margins come down, turnover could come down, and you might even need to let a few people go if they're not committed to the vision and the mission and the values of the business like they were. So there needs to be capital allocated. So there you go. That's the decision that every founder or business owner will come across at one point that they get to make or have to make. And that's a decision that I've made. So I thought I'd share that with you guys, and I hope you found this valuable. So if you enjoyed that or found it valuable, remember to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.